If everyone else is going to be utilizing that strait, and the position from the administration has said it's an international waterway, it should be open without tolls, then I understand that Iran needs to be part of that. Maybe that's a little bit good faith on our part and gets them to show up. But that is, for now, their only source of revenue. So as fast as that spigot can turn on, if they don't behave well, as the president and vice president has said, we can turn that spigot off.
President Trump is floating the idea of the U.S. becoming a sort of guardian angel of the Middle East and a toll collector for the Strait of Hormuz if talks with Iran continue to, well, fall through. Let's bring in Dr. Rebecca Grant, a foreign policy expert and national security analyst. Dr. Grant, when you look at the situation with the Strait right now, I mean, was there a failure to think through the ramifications of the attacks on Iran? Because, you know, closing down the Strait has obviously caused a lot of turmoil in the world economy.
You know, the reaction of the international shippers cowering at anchor, that was unexpected. But today, I've got to tell you, things are looking good. The Strait is open, even according to the UN. We've got 50, 60 ships transited yesterday. That's about half of the traffic flow and the biggest number that we've seen since the beginning of Operation Epic Fury. And I'm going to tell you, the U.S. Navy already is the guardian of the Strait. We need to keep up the confidence of the international shippers. But if Iran sends out one drone or one fast boat, the U.S. Navy will answer with bombs.
Yeah, the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, says that he echoes the kind of progress that you're talking about and says the Iranians have to learn a hard lesson. Listen.
We got 67 ships through the Strait of Hormuz yesterday. Were some of them concerned? Sure. Is this thing over and completely done yet? No. But what we're demonstrating to the Iranians is we can have flow of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz with or without them. We can destroy their nuclear program. If they don't want to make any arrangements or any agreements, we can continue to settle these things the way we have. Maybe there's a slight moderation of their behavior for some economic rewards, but they only get rewards if they stop the destructive behavior.
It does seem that, you know, the Iranians are willing to cut off their nose to spite their face when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz closure.
But Iran has no tactical control of the Strait of Hormuz. And this number, this 67 ships, this is a major turning point. And it's thanks to some very quiet counter-mine ops by the U.S. Navy, the spread of air power from F-16s to aircraft carriers to Apaches that is over that strait right now. And that said, I do think President Trump needs to stay laser focused on this personally. It's time for him to cancel his Jones Act waiver. The national emergency is over. U.S. ships can handle our coastwise trade, but he also needs to really reassure those shippers. CENTCOM will do a lot to do that. And then if we have traffic flowing like it is today, Iran is just out of the picture.
What about other nations, though? I mean, the entire world really has been crippled to some extent. Maybe crippled is too strong a word, but they've been harmed by the Iranian closure. Are other nations willing to get involved to help keep the strait open?
Well, at the G7 meeting, they signed on to a British-French plan, and France's aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle is down in the region at the moment, and I think other ships are planning to enter at some point. This is good reinforcement, but it is definitely a U.S. Navy and U.S. Joint Force show at this point, and they've done a tremendous job. Most of this traffic now is going the Oman route, the usual inbound, outbound route, nothing over towards the coast of Iran, and Iran's just going to be locked out. I love it.
One of the questions, though, is whether the Iranians are just trying to stall. I mean, they've got apparently 60 days to flesh out the details of this memorandum of understanding. Are they trying to stall until the midterm elections and perhaps hand the president a defeat of his party at the polls? Here's what Karl Rove has to say about all of that. Listen.
Each side, the United States, President Trump, and the Iranians have made big bets. The U.S. bet is that Epic Fury, the military mission, in essence, convinced Iran that it's got to change its ways. And the Iranians, in my opinion, their view is that the midterm elections at gas prices place a limitation on the U.S., and they're going to use that as maximum leverage to get concessions.
So who wins this staring match, I guess, Dr. Grant?
Well, he makes a good point, but you know what? I don't care what Iran thinks. The reality is no path towards a nuclear weapon. Their military leveled by Operation Epic Fury, and now President Trump really has that leverage in the Strait. No one can pay them tolls. Secretary Bessent sanctioned that, and the ability of the U.S. Navy to have the geopolitical control of that strait and get that traffic moving is just going to sideline Iran, no matter what they think.
And the president says we are going to, at some point, retrieve the nuclear material that Iran has stockpiled and which may be under tons of rock right now. Dr. Rebecca Grant, thank you.
Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.